Hello, and welcome to Section 2, Swift in Full Swing. We will be covering many topics in the upcoming videos. In this series of videos, we will review the Swift language and some of its features, including an overview of the Swift syntax, variables and constants, explicit versus inferred types, manage program flow, using Swift optionals, unwrapped optional types, creating and calling functions, classes versus structs. We will begin this series of videos by covering some of the basics of Swift. This is not an extensive look at the Swift programming language by any means, and should only serve as a review to get you going on your iOS journey. We will be covering a lot in a short amount of time, so for whatever reason you are feeling discouraged or lost, pause the video, take a break, and then come back and join us. Programming is hard, and you'll learn a lot from doing, so follow along in a playground and go beyond what we are doing in the videos. You won't break anything by typing something wrong, so feel free to explore on your own to further grasp the concepts that we go over. Here we have a sample file called viewcontroller.swift, and this is a file that we created using a template that Apple gives us for creating view controllers. Here I just want to focus on some of the syntax that Swift uses. Starting at the top, we have this green text that has all these backslashes. So you have the double backslash on each of these lines. This signifies a comment. So this code that's after this double backslash is not read by the compiler. So we can write anything after these double backslashes. So we can say, this is a single line comment and is not read by the compiler. The next line is this import UIKit. This is telling the compiler to import the framework UIKit. And UIKit is a framework created by Apple that gives us access to different user interface elements. In this case, it gives us access to this UI view controller. So here we are saying we have a class of view controller, and then we have a colon and a space. And this is what we inherit from. So we can inherit from other classes or protocols. In this case, UI view controller is a class that we inherit from. So we create our own view controller called view controller, and this is a class and it's inheriting from our UI view controller, which is provided to us from UIKit that Apple provides. Notice our naming. We start with a capital V for view, and then the next word we start with another capital letter, so a capital C for controller. Whenever we are naming our own classes, we want to start with a capital letter and each word thereafter have a capital letter as well. When we move down to this override function, we have this override function of viewDidLoad. So this is a method that belongs to our view controller class that we create. And notice we're using a lowercase view, or lowercase v for view, and then each word thereafter has a capital letter. So this is a lowercase camel case. And whenever we name our functions, our methods, our properties, or variables, which are constants or variables, which we will go over in the next video, we want to start with a lowercase letter and then capitalize each word thereafter. And now, again, we see this single line comment, which has the double backslash and then some text thereafter. And that is not read by the compiler, so it can say anything that we want. One other thing that I want to note is that we can have a multi-line comment. So we can do a backslash and an asterisk, and anything after that will be commented out, so it will not be read by the compiler. And to end that, we can do a asterisk followed by backslash, and anything in between asterisk backslash will be commented out. In this case, we can see all the green, and then if we were to create another function, we can see that this is no longer green, and it's back to the compiler being able to read this code. Now we mentioned UIKit. With UIKit, it includes many user interface elements. So if we go up to Window and Developer Documentation, or Shift Command 0, we can bring up Apple's documentation, and then we can search for UIKit, and then we can select UIKit. Now that we're within UIKit, we can scroll down. We can see the different topics like app structure and user interface. And if we click on these views and controls, we can see the different views and controls that we have access to. So we have like a UI view that is an object that manages the content for a rectangular area on the screen. And when we create a view controller, the view controller already has a property of view, which is a UI view. And when we're inside of our storyboard, we can drag in elements to this view. For instance, we can drag in a table view, or we can drag in a stack view. And if you scroll down further, you can see that we have access to an image view, a picker view. We have different controls such as a button or a date picker. When we drag these into our view that is housed within that view controller in our storyboard, we then have access to these controls and we can make different design decisions inside of our storyboard and lay it out the way that we want, and then access these controls in our code. Or if we need more custom control, we can then subclass these controls or views in the same way that we did with the view controller by saying our class view controller inherits from a UI view controller, as we can see in our code here. So we have the class view controller inherits from UI view controller. So our view controller here is really just a subclass of UI view controller. And we can do that with any other elements as well. So we can say class myView inherits from a UI view. And then inside of here, we can put our custom code that will make our myView be something more specific. In the next video, we will begin looking at variables and the difference between var and let, better known as variables and constants. See you then.